Thank you. Welcome back to our last formal session of listen to our wonderful guest speakers. The next session title is The Changing Life, Making an Impact. The guest speaker is a Vice President of the Leadership Development and the Academy for Transformation at the Youth Build USA. His career in the youth development and leadership field spanned 40 years as a teacher, counselor, community organizer, program developer, leadership trainer, director, and also parent. He was a founding staff member of 3 youth leadership organizations, the Youth Action Program in East Harlem in 1978, the original Youth Build Children of War in 1984, an international youth leadership organization, and Youth Build USA in 1988, a youth build that has been in his field for applied practice over 3 decades. He is a national known trainer, consultant, and published author in the area of youth leadership development, peer counseling, and healing and diversity. He has done training consultant work for Peace Corps in Africa and South America. He is a steadfast advocate for including young people as partners in community development. And one more thing that very special about him is he has practiced various forms of meditation since 1970s. He studied with Zen Master Thích Nhất Hạnh in the mid-1980s. Please welcome Mr. John Bell.
Dear Ty, dear venerables, dear brothers and sisters, Xin chào các anh chị em. I'm very happy to be here. I came from Boston yesterday. I read on the list that there are many people from Massachusetts. Who's from Massachusetts? All right, Massachusetts in the house. I'm here because Ty Taluk, we met at a Dharma Teachers Retreat in Deer Park near San Diego in the practice of Thich Nhat Hanh, and we got to know each other. And he knew that I worked for a youth organization, and he said, would you come and talk to several hundred Vietnamese Buddhist youth? And I said, why do you want an old white guy? Why not a Vietnamese leader? He said, well, we're having some of those too. So he thought I had something to offer. I thank the people who invited me to come. I hope I do have something to offer, but I know that, as they say, I'm the last thing standing between you and lunch. So, so why are you here? Isn't that one of the big questions we ask ourselves? Why am I here in this life? You talked about it so good. What is my purpose? What is my role? What is my mission? What am I called to do? What is my aspiration? We ask that all the time. And I think our aspiration, you came to a retreat on awakening. Now maybe some of your parents forced you to come here. And maybe some of you thought you could find a girlfriend or boyfriend here. All of those are legitimate, they're fine. But still, the word awakening is what drew you, I think, because we know that's what we're about. In Buddhist teaching, they talk about entering the stream. That once you make a conscious decision to wake up, to know your Buddha nature, you can't go back. We might get sidetracked on a backwater. We might get caught in a whirlpool. We might have a very slow period where nothing seems to be happening. But you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. We are all going home. We're all going to our true nature, sooner or later, in this lifetime or many more. So we can relax, really, in some way, knowing that that's true. So I'd like to talk today with you for the next little while in an interactive way. I'm going to ask you to do some things with each other to explore that aspiration to wake up, not just for our individual selves, but for society as a whole, for the world, because they are interrelated. As my teacher Thich Nhat Hanh likes to say, happiness is not an individual matter. My happiness depends on your happiness, depends on the happiness of people all over the world. So, is that okay? Would you like to explore this a little bit? And what we're going to try and do here is first start with what we love about life, what our blessings are. Then we're going to explore the brokenheartedness we have about life. Because we look around and we are sick to heart at what's happening. Then we're going to look at how some younger people have helped change big conditions in the world down through history, at least in my lifetime. And then we'll come back and look at maybe some of your vision for how you'd like the world to be, how you'd like to change it, and what your part could be. And then finally, some practices, what you might need to do to strengthen, to be able to do that more forcefully, intentionally. You want to try it? Okay. First, just a little bit about my life so you know why I care about this stuff. Probably like many of you, I grew up with a combination of hardships and blessings. I grew up in a small working class town near Seattle. My parents worked hard, but had a lot of pain and frustration. They started drinking, became alcoholics. All the people in the neighborhood were alcoholics. I was a devout Catholic boy. I prayed to Jesus to help my parents with their drinking, but he didn't seem to have the juice. So I began to pull back from my faith around Jesus. But my father would go to work in the morning and he'd come home drunk or he'd start drinking right away. And I thought, I don't know what it is. I was a little boy trying to figure this out. Something out there is hurting him. Because when he wasn't drunk, he was kind and generous and humorous. When he was drunk, he was angry and bitter. He's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. And I knew it wasn't his basic nature, that something was happening to him. And as an adolescent, I remember, and this is true for all the fathers and mothers in my neighborhood, I made a decision somehow that I was going to help change the world so that it could be a better place for people like my father and all the people around him. It was a young bodhisattva aspiration. I didn't know those words then, but that's, I think, what was happening. And then the 1960s hit. I was 16 years of age in 1960. You can figure out how old I am now if you want to do the math. So 16 to 26, that was a formative period for me. Everything was up for examination. I got involved in the civil rights movement. I got involved in the anti-Vietnam movement, or as I think many Vietnamese people call the anti-American movement, if you were in Vietnam. I marched, I was in picket lines, I was in silent vigils, I got arrested, I got tear gassed. I spent some time in jail, overnight things for these kinds of actions. Then I started working in community-controlled freedom schools. We worked against the death squads in Central America. I helped found, as Tuan pointed out, something called Children of War, where we brought young people from 18 different war zones to the United States to tell their story about what it was like to grow up in these countries, and learned about how all over the world, despite your ideology, your religion, young people are the victims of this kind of adult misinformation. You might call it insanity, being really not awake. And then in 1978, with my wife, we founded something called Youth Build. Youth Build is a program that works with young people who've dropped out of school, ages 16 to 24. They spend half the time on a construction site learning a trade and rebuilding housing for homeless and low-income people. Half the time in a classroom finishing their high school diploma. And this is embedded in a leadership development model that says, you have a lot to give. You have a lot to give back, and you have a lot of leadership. Remember, I came out of the civil rights movement. We had moral leadership in Dr. King. Young people realized that they could plug in their idealism and desire to have a better world into a broader movement and have a bigger impact. We don't have that right now. So my wife and I, who we met in church the Sunday after Martin Luther King was killed, and came home, and we went back to our apartment and talked about what it was like to be in the movement, and shared tears and anger. And she went home and just called her brother up and said she just met the man she wanted to marry. So I like telling that part of the story. So right now, just to finish this part off, Youth Build has spread from that one program. We had a 50-year plan to take political power in this country. Yes, everybody else laughed too. You and who else's army? You know, who's going to do that? But we said, no, you have to have a long-range plan to pull yourself forward. Otherwise, it's kind of day-to-day and you don't quite know where you're going. So we wrote a set of papers and had a 50-year plan that said, if people are going to vote for you and give you political power, you have to have something credible that you've done. So, because people will believe you can get something done. So we started the Youth Build program in East Harlem, New York in 1978. It was, we spread it in New York City. There are now, get this, 273 programs in the nation's poorest communities. There have been 120,000 young people who have been through the program. They've built 22,000 units of affordable housing, and now those families have good places to live. It's now spread to 14 other countries. There are 56 programs in 14 other countries. And there's no end in sight. We just got word last week that the South African government, where we've been working for about 10 years with 3 little programs, has seen that that's the thing that's going to help their young people, and they're going to expand it to 50 programs in the country. The Mexican government is doing the same thing. We're talking with people in Vietnam right now about starting a Youth Build program in Vietnam. So, that's been a little bit about my life and why I come to the Dharma practice with this kind of lens. Side by side with my efforts and our efforts to relieve suffering has been my constant awareness of how miraculous life is, how awesome nature is, how resilient human beings are, how inventive the human mind is, how amazing. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest with mountains and water everywhere, and so I put together this little slide. So I'd just like you to think about, just enjoy this for a few minutes in silence, just as a reminder ourselves of, whoops, I gotta get away from this, get feedback here. Just relax and take it in. And you know this could go on and on and on. Last night, those of us who went on the walking meditation after dinner sat on the hill. Didn't you feel that peacefulness and the breeze? Thich Nhat Hanh teaches children to do walking meditation. And maybe some of you have done this. He says, go like this. Whatever your senses take in, whatever you see with your eyes, you feel on your skin, you hear with your ears. On the left foot, you say, thanks. And on the left foot, to whatever you're experiencing. I'm sorry. On the first step, you say, yes. On the second step, thanks. Yes. Thanks. I'd like you, if you would, silently to yourself, just look around the room, very slowly, and say, yes, that's a mindfulness practice, a noticing. Thanks, that's an acceptance and gratitude practice. Everything you see in this room is a result of immense creativity, patient practice. Everything that's made by people took experimentation, scientific exploration. You know, the sound system we're using, this incredible computer system, the chairs we sit on, somebody had to figure out. The flooring, the beaming, how do you do this? Yes, thanks. What a way to go through life, huh? So if you would, I'd like you to turn to somebody near you, and hopefully somebody maybe you haven't spent a lot of time with yet, so you can get to know each other. And we're going to do a little practice in deep listening. This is not a conversation. We're going to do several of these during the course of the next hour. One person talks, the other listens. One person talks, the other listens. And then we're going to switch. You'll hear my sound the bell after about 3 minutes. So you can decide who goes to first. If you could listen just for a moment. Excuse me just for a moment. Hello? So, when you're speaking, what I'd like you to do is share the things in your life that you love, that you're grateful for, things about the world, things that you just remind you of how lucky you are to be alive. When you're the listener, I'd like you to listen as you think Buddha would listen. And we all have ideas about what Buddha is, but undivided attention, seeing the Buddha nature in the other person. So listen in that way. So please, one person could start. In 3 minutes, I'll sound the bell and we'll reverse it. It's not a discussion, just a deep listening. I can't hear you. The question you're to look at is what I'm grateful for in this life. In my own life, in the world, in nature. You may begin. Now thank your Buddha listener and please switch. Not a conversation, one-way listening. Thank you, Buddha listener. I'd like to invite anyone to share what they love about this life, this world, these people. Is there a mic somewhere? Someone has a mic? A mic, yeah. or you can just stand up.
One of the things I share with my partner is I'm grateful for my family and how, you know, I come from a Buddhist family, so there's two things within that. Not only did I grow up with, you know, a supportive family, but being within that family, I was able to learn Buddhism from it, and I think that's one of the most grateful gifts that you know I have is the backbone of Buddhism. Growing up, learning, and it's helped me, you know, tremendously in my daily life. So, Buddhism and family.
What else? Who else would like to share what you love about life? It's good to share this. It helps bring up the collective joy.
I love children the most.
Okay.
I love Karen Tucker since I became a novice monk. And it turned out that this young Karen Tucker members from Phak Wang Dallas, she came to Tukulam for the training camp in July 2007. It happened that I see her back. I asked her, "Oh, did you come to Madagaskar?" "Yes, I came." "When?" 7 years ago. And I feel kind of emptiness in the weekdays without children come, without Buddhist youth come to the temple on Sunday. I open my mind, I let them play like a bird, come back to their nest, sing a song, whatever, but only till the don't practice how to line dance on the Buddha hall. And don't play soccer on Buddha hall. Except all, then you can do whatever you do there. That's my passion of the Buddhist youth. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think what I like best about my life right now is my position. People come to me to ask me what I think about things. And I think that's probably a little bit of ego. But what I enjoy most about it is having spent 7 years in a seminary and having researched comparable theologies and reading so much on Eastern philosophy, is now I get to hit them with it. Somebody will say to me, Professor, bad news. I go, there is no bad news. It was news. Good for you, bad for you. Not just news. And look at it. And then they'll say, well, I didn't mean to do this. This was an accident. I said, I know accidents. Things happen because they happen. They are meant to happen. There was a long line of causality that starts down the road before you were conceived that made this happen. It didn't happen to you. You had no choice. And they just get frustrated and walk away. But eventually, if you hit them with it often enough, they go, okay, I see you going. So I do enjoy that.
Good. Thank you. One more. What do you love?
So what I grateful the most is this camp. It's allowing me to express my craziness. And since for 25 years I didn't have a chance to dance. I really meet myself in this camp. I really express the things I like to do 25 years ago. But I really connect with the young people, and I think that I like most. And also I express my grateful to my feet. It's healthy feet are. I'm able to play basketball. I have the mountains and so my feet and all my beautiful friends and all the staff and organizations of this weekend camp. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I love hearing from the men. I'd like to hear from some of the women.
I can talk loud enough. I am It's always been very
The camera request that you can
I'd rather
put
go
a little bit
blind
forward
than
here
blind.
so he can pick up your.
I am thankful for
Pick up the mic.
my neighbor who raised me when I was under 5. She taught me what love was, how to be loved, compassion, kindness, how to do things together as a family. And I know that I would never be where I'm at today if I hadn't had that experience with her. And I was glad that she waited on her deathbed for me to arrive from out of the country so I could thank her.
Mm. Good. Thank you. One more from the female side of the family.
I have one for my sister partner over there. She's very grateful that she be here and in this country, so she can be as single as long as she wants. Because in Vietnam, she will be in trouble because they call her
Your secret's revealed. So, gratitude has to be a touchstone for our lives. To be a bodhisattva, to do the kind of work that Gwyn was talking about, we have to root ourselves in gratitude. And side by side with gratitude, every single day, we hear things on the news, see things on the paper, see things on the street that just break our hearts. They could be far away, they could be near. The endless number of children dying of AIDS and their parents. The continuing threats of nuclear war, of terrorism, of hunger, of all the bad news about the climate, how it's getting worse and species are dying and of all kinds and lakes are drying up and the coral reefs are drying up. Poverty that just grinds people into a hopeless life. And maybe up closer to home, people who are depressed, who have chronic illness, who can't really see very far for their lives. That breaks our hearts. Maybe we've had people pass away. We've never had a chance to grieve it. All of us are carrying a huge vat of grief about the world. We've never had a chance to tell those stories, to release them. We don't like feeling it, right? Because it feels so overwhelming, we stay away from it. We distract ourselves. We get busy. We text. We play. We drink. We distract ourselves because we don't want to feel it. But we know that it's pulling on us all the time. Every moment of the day, that vat of grief is pulling on us. It's making us less effective, less loving, less present, less awake. I think you know what I'm talking about. So for a few moments this morning, I invite us to touch our brokenheartedness. We know that we always have this in front of us. The goodness of life is always there to be touched. But let's give ourselves a little moment here to touch our brokenheartedness. Again, with someone you feel comfortable with. Not somebody you're just going to sort of blow this off. I'd like you to really have a deep conversation, a deep listening sharing. It's, again, not a conversation. One person goes first. I'll tell you what breaks my heart, and just answer that question. I'll tell you what breaks my heart, and answer that question over and over. And just, your Buddha partner just listens with that smile, with that acceptance. Sometimes tears might be pretty close to the surface. When we're given permission, sometimes they're right there. That's okay. It's part of the healing process. Our tears are human also. And as young women in the singles group yesterday said, they like a man who can cry. So you men, if you find the tears coming, it's okay. You don't have to cry, and it's not a requirement here. But if sometimes feelings are close to the surface. So again, and get in pairs. I think it's a little better in pairs because you can have a more focused intention. So if you were in three-way last time, try to find a pairs. If we're an uneven number, we'll have to make do, but okay? Again, once you get settled, I'll ring the bell to start. The first person goes, and I'll ring a bell a few minutes later to switch. Yes?
Do you stay with the same partner, or would you recommend?
You can, if you felt comfortable last time, that might be a good thing to build on, but you don't have to. You can also enjoy learning with another person. Okay? Please pair up, if you would. Please begin.
To ask somebody to answer a question?
You mean, do we need the mic?
Yeah.
I'm going to invite.
Yeah.
Oops, starting, is it?
And
Okay. Just. So thank you, Buddha listener, and please switch. And some people I know may have, there's some tissues up here in case they're useful. Please switch partners and start again. Be sure to thank your Buddha listener. So again, I'd like to invite anybody who wants to. You don't have to, but sometimes it's good to put into the collective consciousness things that share our brokenheartedness.
What breaks my heart is my parents who are devout Buddhists and can't practice Buddhism and apply deep understanding towards each other and towards their children.
Thank you. I can see where that's a brokenheartedness. And just remember, they too are eventually going home. What breaks your heart? I know we have a lot of broken hearts in here. Individualized greed breaks our hearts. Institutionalized greed breaks our hearts.
Climbing the corporate ladder was it fun? What breaks my heart the most is sometimes you are up there at that level of in the corporate world, but you have to decide to do things that against your your inner peace. Is it inner peace?
conscience.
Conscience. Okay. To do things that against your conscience, such as laying off people with not the ideal reason, like people are using too much health care to save money for the company so the CEO can get more bonus at the end of his term. Just want to share that my thought about that.
Emails or text messages, so as somebody from far away looking back to what's happening to what I would call my second home, it broke my heart. What hit me the most was now that everything's said and done, that we've separated, I've accepted it, but I haven't really made peace with it yet, mainly because I see now that some of my best friends are stuck on the other side. Some of the kids that I've had the honor of teaching through the years that I've been a leader at my youth group are also there, and I see them not being as happy as they were before this all happened. And it's mainly because their parents who have sided on not on our side. I don't know how to put that in a way that doesn't sound so vicious. But, and it came, what I realized is it came down to the parents' pride and they would be more willing to, you know, save face instead of, and they would be willing to sacrifice their children's happiness just to save face. Even though all of this is said and done already, you know, they have what they wanted. Now, I feel like because this happened, you know, it affected hundreds of people, parents, members of the youth group, me, and it, you know, it breaks my heart to see the students that I've taught, my best friends, just being stuck in this position where they can't escape. You know, our lives will never be the same because of, like you just said, institutionalized greed. And it's just one of the things that broke my heart the most. But hey, good luck. You know, so one of the most helpful things to me just now is that hopefully, you know, time is the best medicine. And I hope, you know, with time, all things will be amended, and that I will get to see my best friends again. I'll get to see those precious kids that were my students, were also my friends who I see as my younger brothers and sisters again. That's just my hope, and
thank you.
Just wanted to share that.
Thank you very much. So there are personal, very, very personal things that happen to us. There are things that we witness out in the world which hurt us a lot, which we can't do anything about, it seems. Right? It seems. I came across this video, this 1-minute video I'd like to just show you. Headlines from the future. Israel and Palestine. What we have before us are some breathtaking possibilities disguised as insoluble problems. Isn't that a beautiful little piece? Just opens your heart about what could be. It touches that place in me, I know. And when I first saw this, I just burst into tears. Like, just could have sobbed for years, and all the headlines we could write. Right? Now, all these changes could come about, and many more very significant changes have come about. But they've come about through a lot of concerted, long-term effort on the part of people. And young people have played a tremendous role. And I just thought, since I've come out of working with young people for so many years and seen what they do and read about them and participated in some of these myself, I thought I'd give you a few examples of the way younger people have helped bring about a more awakened world, a more just and peaceful world. So young people in this country, especially when you look at the problems of racism and poverty and underemployment and climate change, people say, oh, it's too big. It's impossible to do anything about it. But it's because we have not known the whole story about what is possible and what young people have done. So here's a little short history lesson. In the 1960s, 50s and 60s, the young people helped, they sat in at segregated lunch counters in the South, enrolled at segregated schools, rode segregated buses. They formed a student organization, one of which was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. They challenged racism at the core and fundamentally changed this country around racist practices. We're not finished by any means, we know that. But the fact that we have an African-American president today in the United States is partly the result of the young people's work. And you take a look at the leaders here. Martin Luther King, you know how old he was when he started the Montgomery bus boycott in 1957? 26. 26 years old. Anybody know who this is? In the middle? That's Huey Newton. Huey Newton was the founder of the Black Panther Party, which was a community self-protection, self-care program started in Oakland and spread around to other black communities in the U.S. When he founded the Black Panther Party, he was 21. Tremendous influence that he had. In Vietnam, of course, the United States was engaged in that war. Your parents, some of you were there, some of your parents were there. A very brutal, horrifying war. But young people in this country, including myself, thought that it was an unfair, unjust war and were protesting the war to help bring it to an end. Young people burned their draft cards, they marched in protest, they went to jail. Some people actually laid down their lives for it at Kent State and Jackson State here. And they helped bring down the presidency of Lyndon Johnson and helped speed the end of the Vietnam War. Young people played a huge role in that. In Cuba, in the 1960s, shortly after the the Batista dictatorship was overthrown, the government called on the young people, ages 14 to 18, sent them out into the countryside and taught the people how to read and write. And they practically wiped out illiteracy in Cuba in the early 1960s. This happened again 20 years later in Nicaragua when the Somoza dictatorship was overthrown. Young people were called upon again to help their country. Tremendous role that young people played. In South Africa, of course, in the 70s and 80s, the struggle against apartheid, 22 million blacks held in servitude by about 1.5 million white people who ran the country. Young people organized, they struck from school, the tanks would roll in, they'd be tear gassed, they'd throw the tear gas canisters back at them. There was nonviolent protests, they joined all over. They confronted the police. Finally, Nelson Mandela, after 27 years, was released from prison, became the president, apartheid was over. In large part, not only, but in large part, because of the actions of young people, saying we care enough. Buddhists, of course, in Vietnam, this brave monk protest brought the world's attention to the oppression of the Buddhists by the Diem regime back in the late 50s, early 60s. And lately in Myanmar, the Buddhists have been marching peacefully, chanting the Heart Sutra to protest the anti-democratic movement against them. And lately in Bangladesh, too, the movement against the Buddhists. So Buddhists have been very active in bringing about a more peaceful, awakened world and standing up against oppression and injustice. Right now, in this country, tremendous work by young people on immigrant rights. Following in the tradition of Cesar Chavez, who was a follower of Martin Luther King, who was a follower of Gandhi, who was a follower of Buddha, really, in terms of nonviolence, doing the least harm you can, acting towards the good of people, not the bad of people. Young people are leading in the struggle for gay rights, against discrimination in housing and medical care and work employment situations, just because you love someone of the same gender. You know, the school-to-prison pipeline for young people is a new form of slavery, especially targeting young people of color in this country, young African Americans and Latinos in particular. And young people are, again, fighting police harassment, looking to improve the justice system. Some are even fighting to eliminate the prison system and turn them into houses of healing rather than incarceration. Young people everywhere are active, trying to stop the burning of carbon, the recycling, the refueling, the growing things local, the stopping the toxic waste dumps in low-income communities. Young people are active everywhere. I like this last one.
Is that real or is that?
No, that's, I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is. So I guess that one question that I'm going to ask you is, what role will you play? What role would you like to play? Would you help empower Vietnamese youth? Will you help environment in many different ways? Will you share your culture, your cultural riches? Will you join in protests of some cause that you think about? Will you be joining a Vietnamese organization that's helping to think about improving our world? Will you continue to build unity and harmony, community like you have been doing here? So, I hope this is some little inspiration for you to know that young people like yourselves, like your younger brothers and sisters, like some of your children, those of you who are older, young people have played a tremendous role through their courage, determination, their bravery, and their persistence in bringing about a more awakened world. So we don't know what's possible, but it does take a combination of living mindfully and acting deliberately from that place. So what I'd like you to do now is one more pairing, if you would, with someone new you haven't had a chance to talk with yet. We're going to this one and one other one, and then I'm going to let you go. So this one is picking out some part of the world you care about. Education, your schooling, employment, the environment, relationships, the economy, the environment, something like that. Picking out one thing, and I'd like you to think with your partner listening, how would I like it to be? What's my vision? If I had a headline for the future, what would it be like, and how would I go about doing it? What do I care about enough? And try and loosen up, if you don't already have it, loosen up some of that aspiration to make a difference. Okay? 3 minutes each, I'll ring the bell in between. Someone new, if you would. Thank you, Buddha listener. Okay, what will your world look like? Let's hear some visions of what your world would look like if you were in charge of that part of the world. Like to hear females first? Start that way. Reverse some of the customs here. An outsider.
I think with all the children all over the world that are in orphanages and in America that are so severely abused, that the system to adopt is completely broken, and you have to be a perfect parent, perfect income, perfect health, and it's just a disservice to the entire world, and it's a disservice to these children that don't get to be in loving homes just because, you know, I don't have the perfect health or I don't have the best job, and, you know, all you have to do is be loving and caring and supportive to your children to raise good children.
So if you were in charge of all those...
I would get rid of all those restrictions. There is just, even overseas, the restrictions are so difficult, and they have orphanages just full of children,
Okay.
much less than the United States.
Good, thank you.
So,
okay, what will your world look like? Good, thank you. There's an organization in Africa called Riders for Health, where in the rural villages where they had no health care, they trained people to ride motorcycles to carry the drugs and physicians out to the hinterlands. And then, since they didn't know how to repair motorcycles when they'd fall out, they would just leave them on the side of the road and abandon them, all that waste. So then they taught them how to be mechanics. Then they taught them how to work with all the supply chains. So there's now a whole trail of employment possibilities for people around writing for healthcare. Someone over here?
Visions is for children and kids and teens. So I've been doing this for a few years already. That what I'm hoping is that in the future, especially in America first, because this is where I live, that all children, all teenagers and kids would at least once in their life exposed to the practice of mindfulness.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Here you go. Here you go. You can face everybody.
So my vision is, I've been really depressed about how the standardization of schools has been setting a bar or actually a wall for kids' learning curves. And lately I've been seeing kids, they just lack creativity and motivation to expand their mind. So I want to put back art and music and physical education into schools so that kids will have that ability to express themselves. And my vision for myself is later in the future to open up a music and art therapy school that's free for children.
Great, thank you. Our organization sponsors a group called Youth on Board, where they try to get young people involved in Boston's school system. They've actually succeeded in getting young people in the high schools and middle schools now evaluating teachers. Whoa. Yeah, that's right. Wouldn't that change everything? And in Sweden, they've been a decades-long campaign to eliminate grading. So they've eliminated grading from the system. They have other ways of measuring impact. So young people did that.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Dr. John. You look at the slideshow with Dr. Martin Luther King. So I remember about 7 years ago, on that birthday, I read an article, I have a dream. So my vision, first of all, one temple, there is a unit of Gia Đình Phật tử. One Gia Đình Phật tử has one person to be a monastic. So that's my vision, my dream. So I'm very happy today. Today we have brother Thương Du. So he's become a monk. And I would like to see the young people to study and practice Buddha teaching. As our Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh says, we only need to practice 5 mindfulness trainings, which means 5 precepts. The world is a much, much better place to live. So thank you so much. That's what I want to share with you from my heart of a poor monk.
What will your world look like? What's your vision?
Again, in the United States, I was a Buddhist youth youth leader also, and I see that I was a teenage and I have a lot of confusions about life. They not and they need some real experience life, and they get lost in touch with themselves. So my vision is I like to make connection with university students, high school students, because I went to a couple of the juveniles, and most of the juvenile do teach meditation. And a lot of juveniles there is mostly they are from rich family, mostly from white rich family, 80% of them. And I talk to them and teach them meditation, and they lost in life. They have no money, but they don't know what to do with the money. And the parents is. All they want, their parents try to make money and then have time with them and the money that they have, and their children spoiled, get into drugs, a lot of them, and confusing, and they lost their way to, they don't know how to get in touch with themselves. So the reason is somehow that we, last 2 weeks, before I came, I have 2 weeks for our university student retreat, we have 10 of them, but we are very happy together, make a lot of practice. I see that if we can make that kind of connection with the high school students, with young people, and with those students, we can have a lot of
good, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a lot of vision, a lot of aspiration in this room. One more piece. Oh, yeah, go. One more piece after this, but go ahead. Go ahead.
We both hear from the two moms, so on a layperson's perspective. I have a scan. Okay.
Yes, they want to. Why don't you turn around and face everybody if you could.
No, it's okay. I'm going back to what Yuying was saying earlier. Nowadays, there's so many things that we can help with. The greeneries, the planet, this, that, youth, whatever. But we forgot to. Hopefully, even though I'm not saying that I'm against it, hopefully, even though we support that, we don't forget the root of them all. What Witay was talking about. So, let's say, for example, I'm passionate in doing something for the greenery, the earth. But let's say to the point where I don't get my inner peace. I'm stressed out one time to life crisis. So I have my crash down and I lost that passion for whatever that passionate for. So to me, the most important thing is that inner peace. Mm-hmm. So hopefully, even though what you're doing for the environment, still remember the core of it is the inner peace, the changing of yourself. But for example, let's say there's many pains and aches you can get in your body. If you have a head pain, then suddenly a group of people start making something to alleviate that pain, and then a headache, and this pain, that head pain. But what is the root of that? It's not, we don't want just the surface. So what is the root that can change? And honestly, just like what Thay is saying, truly, if everybody could practice true Buddhism, put it to practice, none of this would even arise.
So, thank you. So I think you saw the end of my talk, because this is the last piece. Exactly what you were saying. We have these aspirations, we have these desires to have a peaceful, just world. How do we do this without burning ourselves out, without getting overwhelmed, without retreating into a smaller world than we're actually capable of? Most of us, I think, we settle for a vision for our own lives that's way too small for who we really are. Imagine if we were acting out of our Buddha nature, what we would do. But because, as she was asking us, how many of us believe that we can actually manifest that Buddha nature? We don't have that faith strong, deep. The only difference between us and Buddha is that his intention to awaken is stronger than ours. So, one more pairing, because I would like us to leave dipping into that and what the whole retreat has been about, I think. You've had, on the first day, I understand it was really about mindfulness and basic Buddhist principles and ways of living. The second day was a lot focused on relationships and the things we're dealing with each day. This has been more sort of looking outward. How do you live the Bodhisattva way? They're all tied together. You know, Buddha said that the root of all suffering are the three poisons. Remember what they are? Greed, hatred and ill will, anger, and delusion. Delusion meaning not knowing we're all in this together. Not knowing that there isn't a separate self where it's just me. So today in the world we have, as we've been looking at here, we have institutionalized greed in the form of our economic system, which is all about me, take, competition, all that stuff, which caused a lot of these problems. We have institutionalized ill will in the form of our military, our foreign policy, the hatreds between different groups, all that's institutionalized. And we have institutionalized delusion. America #1 is a delusion, for instance, right? I can be secure even when the other countries are not secure. That's a delusion. And so our individual and collective task, what we're called upon to do by Buddha, by life, in my opinion, our individual and collective task is to transform greed into generosity, ill will into compassion, and delusion into wisdom. Easy, right? Okay, so the last pairing, I'd like you to get with one more person. And this is going to be, again, one person talking, thinking about all the things we've done. What do I need to practice more deeply? Maybe I have to make my attention stronger. Maybe I have to really read the 5 mindfulness trainings or precepts. Maybe I need to practice compassion and generosity. Maybe it's forgiveness. Maybe it's self-love. What do I need to practice more deeply in order to let my light shine? Let my Buddha nature manifest even more than it is already. This is a serious question. We won't have a report out because this is to your own private, but get with somebody and just really look inside yourself. Okay? One more pairing and then we'll round it out. The person gets to share what I need to deepen about my practice in order to live the Bodhisattva way. Thank you, Buddha listener. So as a way of closing, I'd like to invite us to sit for a few minutes, absorb what we just learned this morning, absorb what we've been taking in all through the retreat. Invite 3 sounds of the bell. We'll sit for a few moments. Maybe you could repeat after me the closing gatha. May the fruit of our practice benefit all beings and the earth. May the fruit of our practice benefit all beings and the earth. Thank you for being a very engaged group. I've really enjoyed it. I've been enjoying myself here. I like the good humor, the caring, a lot of care for each other I've seen. It's been delightful for me to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bell. This is a very, very engaged session, and our brother and sister have been sharing and have a chance to talk to each other and also express ourselves and our thought and our wish and our dream. So hopefully we take that home, hang on to it, do something about it, make a difference. So like the title of the session, Changing Life, Making an Impact. So thank you very much, and thank you, brothers and sisters. On behalf of all of us, we have a little gift.
Thank you.
For us to say thank you and for memory. So hopefully we see you next year.
Thank you.